I read 13 books in the month of February. Let's talk about them. What's up, friends? Welcome back to my channel. We finished another month. We made it through February. I read 13 books and I cannot wait to talk about them with you guys. There's some really good ones here, so let's dive right in. I'm going to start off with my 5-star read of the month, and that is Keeper of Lost Children by Sadika Johnson. This is the same author as House of Eve, which I haven't read yet, but I have read Yellow Wife by her, and this book was just so good. So I was really excited. This one just released this month, and I dove into it immediately. I loved this book. This was fantastic on paper. It was fantastic on audio. The storyline takes place in post-World War II Germany, and it focuses on a children's shelter, which is in Germany, that is filled with nothing but mixed-race children. These children pretty much all have German mothers and Black U.S. Army fathers. It was very common during the time that these army men would come over, be stationed in Germany, and build up a fling with the local German women. They would end up having a child, and when the army man was transferred or went back home, these German women had no way to raise the child on their own, and so they would end up in these shelters. We follow 3 separate people along 3 separate timelines in this story. One very loving woman in Germany who volunteers at the shelter and helps get these children adopted into loving homes. Second, we follow a Black man serving in the U.S. Army, and you follow him through his own story where he experiences so many racial injustices in his life and from the Army. The third point of view that you're following is a young girl who is brought up in an extremely unloving home and has always been searching for purpose in her life. The 3 stories come together beautifully. This book was 5 stars. It was everything that I wanted it to be. It was just so good. If you're looking for something like this, I highly recommend this one. Another one that I absolutely adored this month is Adrift by Will Dean. I was so excited for the release of this one, and I will read anything that Will Dean writes. He has a way of writing male characters that I just want to strangle. This one follows a husband and a wife who are both aspiring writers, and they have a son together. They are currently living on a boat. The mother is the glue that holds the family together. The father is an absolute piece of crap. He's the type of man that thinks that the woman's job is to basically serve him. Their marriage is not at all a partnership. Each night he makes his wife and son go to bed and requires absolute silence so that he can work on his novel. And the more frustrated he becomes with everything, the further and further he starts moving their boat away from civilization. This book is definitely a slow burn, okay? It was a slow pace, but every single part of it was frustrating and will bring out like the emotions that really get you going in a book. And I loved it, but you definitely have to be prepared for a slow burn. I wouldn't call this one fast-paced at all. On the other hand, we have an extremely fast-paced, anxiety-inducing book. This is Her Last Breath by Taylor Adams, his new release for the year, and I ate this one up. This is a nail-biting story. It follows 2 best friends who agree to go on a caving trip together. They're gonna go and descend inside of like these caves. As they gear up and go down together, they notice that there's another caver in there who seems to be following them. And at first it seems like nothing, but suddenly this man begins to harass them, and the only way they can get away from him is to continue going further and further into this cave. The story continues to escalate until one of these people are stuck hundreds of feet underground in an extremely small and tight place that they cannot get out of, and they are fighting for their life. The story is told in this back and forth kind of way, where the surviving person is in the hospital recounting what happened and then to what actually happened in the cave. So it really just keeps you hanging on to every last word. And like I said, it's really twisty as well. I really enjoyed this one. Then I read Famous Last Words by Gillian McAllister. I was really excited for this one because a lot of people had told me that they really loved it, but honestly this book wasn't for me. For some strange reason, I just had a hard time grasping and paying attention to what was going on. Listen to how good it sounds though. It's about a woman who's going about her day when the police tell her that her husband is involved in a hostage situation. She's ready to panic, but come to find out he's not one of the hostages. He's the person holding the hostages hostage. She has absolutely no idea what is going on. She could have never predicted this in a million years about her husband, and she's pretty much in shock at the situation. Her husband escapes and is in hiding for years. She hasn't heard from him in years. The entire plot of this was awesome. The characters were awesome. It was just something about the way the events kept unfolding that lost me more and more as the story went on. I just could not keep up with who was who and what was what, and that ruined it for me, unfortunately. But if this sounds good to you, you have to give it a try on your own. Then we have Baby Teeth by Zoe Stage. I'm not sure if her name is pronounced Zoe or not, so if it's not, then I apologize, but I really, really loved this book. It follows the story of a small family. We have a mother, a father, and their 7-year-old daughter named Hanna. Hanna adores her father, but for some reason, she cannot stand her mother. With all the things going on within their family, it is clear that Hanna wants to get rid of her mother so that she can have her father all to herself. But Hanna is also a mute child. She doesn't speak. She's very difficult for her mom. She's not currently in school because each time they tried to send her, she got kicked out. And mom is stressed. She's stressing out. But this story was just so engaging the entire time. I was like, what is Hanna gonna do next? And I loved the way it had the point of view of the mother and also the point of view of the daughter. So even though she was mute the entire story, she didn't speak, we still got to see like the thoughts inside her head and what she really was thinking and planning. I really enjoyed this one. So then I found out that there's actually a sequel to this book, and that is called Dear Hanna. And this one follows Hanna in her older years. The one thing I will say about this book was that I loved it because it was a continuation of a character that I loved, but it wasn't super exciting. So still worth the read if you did enjoy Baby Teeth on its own. You can still read it on its own, but I wouldn't necessarily really recommend it on its own, to be honest. This was a really interesting one. I read Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds, and this book, it's written in like if you can see this, I don't really know what the right word for this is, but because it's written in this poem type format, you literally can fly through this book. This is like a one-day read. It's about a boy named Will whose older brother was just shot right outside. The entire book takes place in the span of 60 minutes, and it follows Will on his elevator ride and all the thoughts that are running through his head during that 60-second elevator ride. This one is very unique, very reflective, definitely worth a read. It's very quick, and I enjoyed this one. I look forward to reading more from Jason Reynolds. Another one that I loved this month was Good Me, Bad Me by Allie Land. This one had a really unique synopsis too. This is about a young girl named Millie who just turned her own mother in for being a serial killer. Now her mother is in jail awaiting trial, and Millie gets a new name and a new foster family and is dealing with her own struggles. But Millie is also going to be testifying at her mother's trial, which is getting closer and closer. This book really takes you through like the inner battle of the mind that Millie is having of, I know what my mom was doing is wrong, but also I still love her. She's still my mom. This was just really good. I really enjoyed it. And you can take the title into play here. Like Millie is battling with the good me and the bad me inside her own mind. Very fun, very different, very psychological. I loved it. The Perfect Wife by Blake Pierce. This book was less than 200 pages long. It's like 180, 190 pages. And it was packed with so many different layers. I was pleasantly surprised with this book. It follows a husband and a wife who just left their big city LA life to move to a smaller city, and their new neighborhood is nothing like what they're used to. They moved for the husband's new job, and he seems to like fit in and get along with the community right away, but the wife is having problems. The women are just strange, and there's also like this neighborhood country club that has really strange culty vibes. The wife also has a dark, secretive past of her own that her husband doesn't know about. She is also currently in school training to become a psychologist that's going to be working with the darkest and baddest criminals. This book was really good, although it does leave off on a crazy cliffhanger, and it's part of a series. So I have to go and find book 2 and read that one to see like how I really feel about it. Personally, I loved the story, but I would have preferred if it was like an extra 100 pages long and just summed up all in one book. I don't love when my thriller books are part of a series. There are some really good ones out there, don't get me wrong, but for this one, I would have preferred it to wrap up all in one book. I read another book that had the same title, The Perfect Wife. This one was by J.P. Delaney, and I really enjoyed this one too, although I felt like this one was a little bit too long. It follows a man who works in AI development. And when his wife passes away, he recreates this AI robot version of her that is like extremely accurate. He then downloads all of their happy memories like into her robot mind. We follow the story from her point of view, like as the robot. She's the one whose point of view we're getting, but we also learn that the accident that killed her all those years ago, the husband was actually the #1 suspect for. Overall, this one was really good, definitely something different. I don't typically love AI stories or stories that focus a lot on like tech, but this one was done really well and I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it was a little bit long and the ending was kind of abrupt, but the entire story I enjoyed. Next, I have Our Kind of Cruelty by Araminta Hall. I really enjoyed this book. This one was also really unique. This whole story is being told from our male main character, whose name is Mike, and it's told in 3 separate parts. In part 1, he tells us the story about how he met the love of his life, named Verity, and the beginning of their relationship. Together, they would play this game that they called the Crave. They would go into a bar together, and Verity would purposely act as if she was single. When a man came up to try and flirt with her, Mike would come step in, break it up, and claim her, and together they would leave. And this is like something that they just thrived on as a couple. This was their game that they played. In part 2 of the story, he tells us how Verity is now engaged to another man, but Mike thinks that this is all part of a new Crave game, and he thinks he needs to go and save her from this supposed engagement. The third part of the book actually takes place in court, and there is a trial. The entire story, I found myself thinking, is Mike really this delulu, or am I delulu? Like, is the book fooling me? Or is he just fooling himself? And I love when a book does that. I just have so much more fun as the reader going through a story, making my mind think like, what's really going on here? And am I going to be surprised? I just thought this was overall a very unique story. It kept me entertained the entire time. I read this one really fast and I loved it. I would love to find more books like that that just have different and unique storylines. I have 2 more left. We have Make Me a Monster. I have trouble saying this author's last name. This is by Kalynn Barron. The story follows a young girl named Mika whose parents are morticians, and the funeral home that they work in happens to double as the house they live in. So she is no stranger to dead bodies being in the freezer in the basement at any given time. One day, tragedy strikes her life and she loses someone who is extremely dear to her, and this causes a shift in her world, and the dead bodies around her begin acting strange. That's all I'll say in order to not give away any key details. Inside the cover, it says, Mika thought she understood death better than anyone. Turns out the family business is a bit more complicated than it seems. This one was fun. It was a very quick read, definitely geared toward YA, but I really enjoyed it. My favorite thing about this was the relationships in her friend group. I thought they were so fun. They had me laughing quite a bit throughout the story. The last book that I have is The Woman in Cabin 10 by Becca. This was for sure a popcorn thriller. It was very fast-paced, very short, super short chapters, and entertaining enough to like keep going, but also it's just a popcorn thriller, so it didn't have a lot of sustenance. It takes place deep in the woods of the Scottish Highlands in a cabin where a man kidnaps and brainwashes women into being his wife. He will also get furious at any slight sign of a gray hair, of a wrinkle on the skin, or any sort of weight gain. So yes, this is another book to file under men in books that will absolutely piss you off. But we follow Mary, who does her job as the perfect wife, until she finds a letter beneath the floorboards that's addressed to the next woman. Like I said, this is definitely a really quick read. Overall, I enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 stars. That's it for the 13 books that I read in the month of February. It was a really good month. I battled with a lot of books that I picked up and ended up not finishing. There were so many books that just couldn't grab my attention this month for some reason. I had a lot going on. But other than that, I'm still very happy with the ones that I did manage to read, and I'm very much looking forward to March. There's still so many new books coming out and new releases and books that I already have on my shelves that I am so excited to get to. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.